About 2 years ago, I set out on a journey. A journey with one simple goal. Turn all of One Piece into a theme park in this silly theme park game. Now, for those that don't know what One Piece is, it's the biggest anime in the world, with an anime being Japanese animated media. So, what do you need to know about the show? Well, it's a world in which like 99% is sea, and in which people can get crazy powers through eating fruit. This created a bunch of pirates, as well as created a group called the Marines. And both of them are both good and evil at the exact same time. Also, the East Blue is like one of the biggest areas in One Piece, in which our protagonist Luffy started off in. As well as, I'm currently about 1/6 of the way to building the entire park. Yeah, I think this is gonna take a while, isn't it? However, this is how I built the entire East Blue inside of a silly theme park game. You may be wondering what island I'm gonna be making first. I decided to start with the very first island you see inside the anime. That being Loguetown. Yeah, the one in which the King of the Pirates gets executed in the very intro of the show. And this is gonna be the entrance to the park. And with this entrance, I took a lot of inspiration from Benny's movie park. So, that means we're gonna be building these two buildings right here, with the nameplate being the biggest difference. Yeah, that's gonna say One World. Alright, now that I've built the entrance, the logical next step for any theme park would be a grand plaza, with, of course, an info point. In our case, that's gonna be the Marine headquarters in Loguetown, based off this picture right here. And of course, the plaza can't just have an info point, so why not slap a restaurant and a fountain in there too. However, now for the big centerpiece, the execution platform, where, and let me tell you, this was surprisingly easy to build, basically just consisting of 4 poles and a couple of crosses. Okay, you may be wondering, what about the backdrop? Because right now it just looks kind of bland. So then I went on a quest to figure out what was actually behind this platform in the anime, and it's just a basic and bland town hall. Now eventually I decided this building just didn't have enough spice. I wanted some extra spice, baby, yeah! So what did I build? I built a building with slightly more spice. I built the one that was in blocked fruits, just with bricks. Yeah, this is what the C1 rework is gonna look like, huh? It's never coming. Oh, and I also decided to make a little shop right here. But wait, this means the plaza is done. The East Blue is home to many different marine bases, and with so many there is just simply one thing you can't avoid: corruption. And in this case, that comes in the form of Axe Hand Morgan. He's in charge of a marine base in Shell's Town, and that also just so happens to be what we are building right now. So, after building the weird, what are they called again? Okay, thanks Google, they are called cooling towers. Anyways, after building those cooling towers, I realized one very important thing. This is a theme park. And what is a theme park without its rides? So in this case, I guess we are building a boat ride, with the idea being that you are sailing through the East Blue and the islands that the Straw Hats visit there. However, you can't just have a boat ride that has no queue. So for the queue of the boats, we're gonna be making it go through the marine base, eventually ending up inside of the cooling towers, and then going underground into the sewers where the station will be. Okay, so right now the boat ride is lacking one very important thing: a drop. Well, at least a drop that actually has theming. And what better way to theme a drop than with a gigantic circus ran by a crazy clown that can chop up his own body parts. Yeah, I'm talking about Buggy's Circus. Now, in the show it's surrounded by orange talent, so I decided to build a little recreation of it. However, what about the circus itself? And thankfully this is a pretty easy build. largely just consisting of rectangles placed in the shape of a circle. For the interior, I decided to make a window so you can see the boat as it plunges into the water without actually getting wet yourself. A camera, and of course some junk! I also decided to make a little wooden village to represent the wooden village Luffy grew up in the live-action remake, as well as a tiny little version of Syrup Village where Usopp comes from. Somewhere in the East Blue there's a restaurant known for its excellent cooking, and of course the fact that it's freaking floating in the middle of the sea. How'd they do that? I don't know. I'm of course talking about the Baratier, and building it was not as easy as you may think, and that's largely because of the head, but I'll get to that soon. So, for now I'm starting with the bottom platform and eventually moved on to the walls. And now it's time for the stupid fucking fish! This was the biggest pain of my entire life to build. Now you may be wondering, why was that so hard to build? And it's largely because of the fact that this was a fish. Yeah, you're not gonna get a much better explanation than that. Wait, hold on. I also have to build the inside, huh? This should do it. When you're out at sea in the world of One Piece, no position is more important than that of the navigator, being the very person who guides you through the toughest of waters as well as just some simple sea. You see, without somebody like Nami, Luffy would have obviously never even made it to the Grand Line in the first place. Oh, and this doesn't mean you can't say this for any of the other Straw Hats, I just needed a good intro for this segment. So, now that we're in it, I might as well talk about what we actually are building. And, well, this entire upper side of the East Blue is going to be Arlong Park as well as Kokoyashi Village, where Nami grew up in. Now, as much as I would like to say that this is a village that has plenty of unique things going for it, it really doesn't have much other than maybe the tangerine farms. And that may bring you to wonder, what do you actually start with? If you chose rocks, you're absolutely right. Okay, so as far as the rest of Kokoyashi goes, it's mostly just houses and rocks. However, I did decide to also build the House of Bellemere, who is Nami's, hold on, Google Translate, foster mother. Yeah, that. But now for the fishies, aka Arlong Park. You see, in the anime, Orange Town is being dominated by fish. You may be wondering how the crap that's even possible, and well, that's mostly just cause they are not your typical fish. They're more like shark, plus human, plus every general character. However, even though all of the villagers hate them, they still pay the fishmen 100k a month per person to get them built this crazy temple called Arlong Park. And of course, and I feel like you can feel this coming, we gotta build that. But I'm not just gonna be building a normal recreation of it. No, that would be far too simple. I'm going to turn this into a drop tower. So with that said, I guess let's place down the tower and start making the temple around it. Now, as far as the temple itself goes, it's at a very awkward angle to build, however, eventually I managed to make things work. So with that said, are we fully done? Well, no, not really. Okay, there isn't a whole lot left to build, but I still gotta finish up some of the details, like this shop I added in Kokoyashi, or these rocks I placed around the perimeter of the whole area. But now you may be wondering, didn't I forget like one very important thing? And if you're thinking that, you're absolutely right. Because I did indeed forget all of the names of the rides and shops. So if you made it all the way here, make sure to comment down below your best ideas for those rides and shops, as well as ideas you have for this park in general. Think things like new rides and new shops, new restaurants. Hell, if you really want to go crazy, you can even comment down below some whole new areas for this park. Keep in mind that it does indeed need to be One Piece themed, otherwise I don't really feel like the name would be fitting. Maybe I'll do an Avatar The Last Airbender area, I'm still considering it. However, now I think I can say that we've successfully built the entire East Blue in a silly little theme park game.